everyone. All right, new week of the Retro Gamers. We're back. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What's going on, Ant?
Same stuff, 3 hours earlier, the usual.
Yes, sun's still up over there.
Sun is always up in sunny California. Oh, no, wait, I'm thinking of another state that has, no night.
Philadelphia.
For months.
Oh,
yeah.
Alaska.
No. They're all night there. But, no, we're here for another week.
another week it is, and a lot of barbecue and a lot of hamburgers and stuff. Memorial Day weekend that just passed us, as we remember those who no longer here to allow us to do stuff like this, to do podcasts and everything like that.
Yes, exactly. Brave men and women who fought valiantly for our country, and we thank them for their service.
Definitely.
It allows us to ramble on about retro video games online.
Absolutely. And so that was yesterday. That was Monday, of course. Sunday was National Hamburger Day.
National Hamburger? Did you get a hamburger?
No, I did not, because I didn't realize it till just a little while ago.
Oh, well, then we're both wrong, because I didn't get one either.
And then Saturday was just Saturday. So did you go to a lot of barbecues? Any barbecues?
I did hit up a friend's barbecue. It was nice and enjoyable and full of cool American. Well, here now, not to jump backwards for 1 second, but why is National Hamburger Day coming the day before Memorial Day? That kind of defeats the purpose, because everybody's going to be having burgers on Memorial Day.
Because I think I feel like majority of the barbecues are like the Saturday or Sunday before.
Really?
That's what I feel like. Because the next day you don't necessarily have work.
Oh, okay. I guess I always celebrate a Memorial Day on Memorial Day. So.
Well, of course, yeah. But that's what I'm guessing. It's also, I think it's an unrecognized holiday.
Well, it's obviously recognizable. I actually saw ads on television about it.
Did you really? I didn't even see it. I just saw it on Facebook.
I don't remember where it was, but they were giving out free hamburgers at places.
What? Where?
Yes. I don't remember.
Oh my God! I need to know
because
where.
Because I laughed and said, "I'm not going to stand in line for 2 hours to get a free hamburger." I was like, I can go to the store, buy one for $1.
It's like people at Old Navy today with the $1 flip-flop day.
Oh, it was a $1 flip-flop day?
Yeah,
Ooh.
The lines looked gross.
I can only imagine. I mean, people realize, though, that Old Navy sells the flip-flops for $5 normally, right? But hey, $1 flip-flop day, that gets you a pair of flip-flops for every day of the summer.
Honestly, I mean flip-flops are the worst to begin with, in my opinion. But who's flipping flip-flops?
I don't know, but why are we talking about flip-flops?
Is there $1 at Old Navy?
Okay, moving on. Please.
But we had good barbecues, good times. Actually, it's funny, the barbecue. This is probably the first, beginning of summer season since we started doing the show. So. Mm-hmm. Now I got people want to go to the barbecue. People will come up to me and they're like, yeah, I found my Nintendo or I found my Genesis and I've been playing it and almost trying to pick my brain, thinking I know each and every game that's ever been out there when I don't know them. But it's fun to hear now all the stories of everyone talking about their old systems.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying that too, because retro gaming is slowly becoming I don't want to say it's a fad, but it's just it's just another thing out there. Newer systems aren't always, the way to go. Of course, I say that as I'm currently entranced with my Switch, but yeah, I mean, it's great talking to other people who are like, yeah, I really miss playing my Nintendo, or I need to go get one again, or even, with the NES Classic hoopla and all that stuff. It's like people are finding ways to retro game, which is awesome.
Totally, it's sweet, and to see now them with their kids and introducing their kids to games. I mean, my godson, he's 6.5. He's obsessed with Super Mario Brothers 3.
And he's not the only one. Shout out to Charlie and Mary. Charlie, he posted a picture on our Facebook page. He's got his little girl Mary playing Mario Brothers 3 also. So
yeah,
excellent job, Charlie.
I think there was another picture of her playing Donkey Kong.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. She's gonna be a pro at those games and beat the pants off of us.
So yeah, no, it's fun to see the new generation playing in. I mean, there is such a gap too between this young generation and the systems that they're playing. So it's pretty cool to see them discover what we're rediscovering.
Exactly, and it's cool because they could just jump into the current generation of gaming, and there's nothing wrong with that, playing what's out there today. But I feel like going back to the history of it and seeing what came before is just, I feel like, so much more rewarding.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and
But
it's funny.
biased.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, like I am with Nintendo.
Exactly. Oh, well, yeah. Let's not go there. No, we'll go there later.
We like over the weekend, a buddy of mine, Harry, who listens to the podcast, big fan. Actually, he was the first person I know to get an NES Classic. It was pretty funny. He was telling me how he still has Nintendo games, but his old school original NES just isn't working anymore. I think he even said it. It's survived a couple of floods and it survived just,
Wow.
a few moves and stuff, but now it just, age is finally catching up to it. And I told him about the Retron HD, because he just has Nintendo. He just needs the one system. So I told him about that, and I think he like started like on his phone. I think started pre-ordering it on Amazon when I was seeing him there at the barbecue. So it's cool to see literally everyone, really getting back into this time. And now with all the barbecues, I don't know if it happened to you, but yeah, I've gotten a few people come up to me and just kind of like picking my brain now because of the podcast.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. I live in LA. Everybody here just wants to talk about movies.
They have other things on their mind.
Yes, exactly.
That's the part of Brooklyn that's still with you. It's the retro gaming.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I have left. Everything else is all like, oh man, I got to schmooze out here and work my mojo to get some notice for my scripts and stuff.
A retro gaming script. Let's go. Let's do it. Retro Gamers the movie.
Don't give away my ideas, okay?
Don't tempt.
Do not tempt. I guarantee you it will be the next Double Dragon.
Oh, you know what? I only hope so, because that means we would at least get a DVD release.
That's actually very true. So here's hoping.
Or in this case, a Canadian DVD release, because I never saw a regular version of Double Dragon. It was like the one I have is like a Canadian version.
Oh no, I had the American version.
I never saw it on the shelves.
Well, yeah, I had it until I realized, why do I have it? I got rid of it.
Oh, how could you?
Sorry. Now who's the boss?
That line, oh my God. That was the redeeming quality of that horrible short white hair.
No, there was no. There was nothing redeemable. Well, there was one thing redeemable about it, but I don't want to talk about it. It's not PG.
Her shorts? Yes, her shorts.
But anyway, if anybody wants to go and watch a really bad video game based movie, please go rent Double Dragon. Just go find it in a dollar bin somewhere, or I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Oh, it's got to be.
Find out. Double Dragon. Oh
yeah.
Boy.
Oh, yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? Interesting. Actually, just real quick to talk about Double Dragon. So we talked a few months ago. We were talking about the Double Dragon 4. Came out on like PS4 and stuff like that. So Double Dragon 4 comes out, yet Double Dragon 5 was on Super Nintendo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
So I was going through some stuff, going through some lists and everything, and I'm still trying to figure out where Double Dragon 4 was in between, because unless they count Super Double Dragon as Double Dragon 4, because there was definitely a Double Dragon 5.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Interesting.
Yes, very much.
Well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, none.
No, you're right. Double Dragon 5, The Shadow Falls.
I think it was a fighter. I think it was like a Street Fighter type game, I think.
You are correct.
Okay, yeah.
So that's weird then. I mean, did they skip 4 because they wanted to?
I think the company completely forgot about the game.
You mean they forgot about 5?
Yeah, completely forgot about 5.
Or 4?
probably forgot about 5. They probably only knew 1, 2, because Street Fighter 4 has that 8-bit retro to it.
Mm-hmm.
So since 1, 2, and 3 were on Nintendo, they probably disregarded Super Double Dragon. Probably didn't even pay attention to Battletoads Double Dragon.
No, I actually think I think they considered I think Super Double Dragon was considered number 4.
That's my favorite.
Because
yeah.
after that one came Double Dragon 5.
So yeah, I was funny. I'm going through. I'm like, wait, 5, and then I remembered. I'm like, wait, there was a 5. So obviously,
yeah. So I'm guessing they just went back and tried to fix it by adding a 4.
But there was already a 4.
No. Well, to your point, it was called Super Double Dragon. There was never one that officially said Double Dragon 4.
Not like Super Castlevania 4.
Exactly.
Come on, people! Double Dragon, get your act together.
This podcast is already falling apart. This episode.
All right, let's. Try,
oh boy,
let's try and get it back on track again. It's Memorial Day.
Do we ever have a track?
I don't know. The track it's all over the place. But we're gonna get back on track in literally just a few moments.
All right, and we're moving on here, and I think Larry, since we did just celebrate an American holiday with Memorial Day, I thought I can keep that theme going for our show this week, and for our Retro Spotlight highlight, an American game. Or an American base game. I'm sure it wasn't made here, but you know what I'm talking about.
I hear what you're talking about. I got you.
Yeah. So I thought I was trying to think of like a good retro game that would symbolize Memorial Day, and the first one that came to mind was Medal of Honor.
Oh.
And I know Medal of Honor had a long storied, successful series that went on for over a decade, I think.
In my opinion, if not for Medal of Honor, I don't think you'd even get to Call of Duty. Medal of Honor was a good pick. I loved Medal of Honor.
Oh, there you go. So you may enjoy learning a few things about Medal of Honor. And and kind of like last week when we talked about Tony Hawk, I'll pepper in a couple of details about the series, but I really like going back to the original one that started it all. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the very first Medal of Honor that came out on the PlayStation.
Let's do it.
So, our Retro Spotlight, Medal of Honor, developed by DreamWorks Interactive. So, for those who do or do not know, that was an extension, or may possibly still be, I don't think it is though, an extension of DreamWorks, the film company, the major motion picture company. Yeah. So they had an interactive arm. So they developed Medal of Honor. Now, why would a company like DreamWorks do a game like Medal of Honor, you may ask? Because it was published eventually by Electronic Arts, not DreamWorks.
I was going to say, it was an EA game. All right.
It was published by EA, but the developers were DreamWorks.
Gotcha.
And here's why. So development of the game started in November of 1997. Oh. And what happened was Steven Spielberg, mm-hmm. held a meeting with the DreamWorks Interactive staff outlining an idea for a video game, which was a first-person shooter set during World War II.
Wow.
And he said he got the idea after watching his son playing GoldenEye on N64. And Spielberg, if you know Steven Spielberg and his films, Saving Private Ryan wound up being one of his most well-known and highly praised films. Amazing movie. Yeah, absolutely fantastic film. So he's the one who originally went to DreamWorks with the idea for a World War II based shooter, which is where Medal of Honor was born.
Wow.
So the game was developed for the PlayStation console. It was released on October 31st, 1999.
Halloween. All right.
Halloween 1999. You got the original Medal of Honor. And the music for the game was actually composed by film composer, and I'm gonna butcher his name because I can never remember how to say it right. It's Michael Giacchino, I believe, or Giacchino. It's Italian, and I still can't say it right, which sucks.
Giacchino.
So, right. Well, that sounds good. And if you don't know who that man is, he is a very well-known film composer. He's done films like The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Mission Impossible, Doctor Strange,
Really?
um, Jurassic World,
Wow.
and then also on television, Lost, Alias, Fringe. So,
I didn't realize so many big names touched this game.
yep, very, very well known. Also an Academy Award winner as well.
Fair enough.
For Up, his work on composing the music for Up. So he actually was brought in to compose the score and the music for the first Medal of Honor. So here you are. You have two big Hollywood players who kind of stepped in here for Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And the music for the game was actually recorded by a full orchestra. So there was nothing computer related there. They actually had a full orchestra doing all of it.
Sounds about right.
Which is great. The game was actually written and produced by a man named Peter Hirschman and another man called Dale. His name was Dale Dye. He was the game's military advisor. They actually hired a military advisor for
awesome.
the process, which is why which I think part of the reason why the Medal of Honor series was so successful was
so accurate.
because how realistic it was and how accurate. And Dale Dye was also the military advisor that Spielberg worked with for Saving Private Ryan.
Wow.
So it was all kind of an internal thing here. And the original game received critical acclaim. Eights and nines pretty much across the board from all the major reviewers. The final issue of this is overseas, the UK PlayStation magazine.
Okay.
They chose the original Medal of Honor as the 8th best game of all time.
Wow.
IGN ranked it the 21st best game on the PlayStation console, on the original PlayStation console. And of course, it wound up, thanks to the success of the first Medal of Honor, it's wound up spawning 16 different games or sequels, if you call it that. There were 16 different Medal of Honor games across 11 different platforms, both console and handheld. And to date has sold almost 38 million copies worldwide. The front runner for it at the moment is Medal of Honor Frontline for PlayStation 2, which sold almost 7 million copies.
That was a good game. Yep, I remember that one.
The original Medal of Honor comes in fourth at almost 2.7 million.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, January 2013, Electronic Arts announced that the Medal of Honor series was being taken out of rotation because the poor reception for the latest installment, which was Medal of Honor Warfighter, did not do so well, and that kind of ended the Medal of Honor series.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were, like I said, the top ones were basically Frontline, Rising Sun, and the original Medal of Honor for PlayStation. And they, it was just really interesting to do research on something like this and to come back with, wow, Steven Spielberg had his hand in this series. It was kind of cool for me being a film guy.
Oh yeah, right.
To discover that information. But yeah, so that was the Retro Spotlight for this week, Medal of Honor. I mean, so Larry, since you are a fan of the series, why don't you share some thoughts?
I'm trying to think back to if I even remember Spielberg's name being attached to the game, like back when I bought it or like even in the opening credits or whatever. But forget that part. As you were explaining all these names, Spielberg, military director, the guy doing the music, I mean, it now makes sense as to why that game was like the first game I ever played that truly felt like you were playing a movie. And it played out just like a movie.
Well, because you had a film guy at the helm,
exactly.
And not only that, you had somebody like Spielberg who's deeply passionate about World War II, making a World War II video game. So,
the game was. I remember playing it. It was. I mean, you were in the trenches. You were behind enemy lines. Like I just remember, like one of the most vivid scenes I remember. It's not even an action sequence. It was a stealth sequence because it did have stealth aspects of the game, and you had to sneak in to the base, whatever. You're already in Germany. And, I just remember all the time the guard coming up, papers, where are your papers? Like, it was so deep enthralled that it felt like a scene from, like, Saving Private Ryan or something like that. And having to, find the papers I think he stole earlier in the game that were, forged. Medal of Honor was probably the first PlayStation game that I played just hours on end with. And, dare I say, eventually when I finally finished it, which was later on, because then Medal of Honor Underground came out, the sequel, and all the future ones. And I think of Rising Sun. You were talking about, what was the biggest seller? Which one was the biggest seller again?
I believe you just said it. I believe it was Rising Sun.
Rising Sun was one of. I think it was.
No, Frontline. Frontline was the.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Frontline or Rising Sun. Which one of those was another one that had an awesome co-op that I actually ended up beating with an ex-girlfriend's brother at the time because he bought the game, so we ended up playing it. So the series, I can't say enough about Medal of Honor. In fact, even before I kind of realized how bad the game was, that final Medal of Honor game, when they announced it was going to be a new Medal of Honor, it's like finally you had all the Call of Duties, and Call of Duty started to go away from World War II. And then Medal of Honor, that series was coming back, even though Warfighter, whatever that last one, I think if I'm not mistaken.
That was the last one, yeah.
I think that was more modern, Medal of Honor, like more modern time. I don't think it was World War II, if I remember that correctly, but I could be wrong on that. But just bottom line, in my opinion, Medal of Honor, I'll take Medal of Honor over Call of Duty, especially for their respective first games.
Oh, interesting.
And I'll always go Medal of Honor. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Call of Duty World War II that comes out this November. But that was cool. Yeah, it pieced. You can't see it. It's a podcast, but like as Anthony was talking about all these names, and that's like I just kept thinking back, and the puzzle came together.
Well, I'm glad the puzzle came together for you.
Thank you.
And hopefully it came together for some other, for some of our listeners as well who are fans of the Medal of Honor series. And if you haven't played Medal of Honor, and you like first-person shooters and you like the realistic war type games, dust off your PlayStation and go pick up a copy of it. You won't be disappointed.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So there you go. Retro Spotlight, Medal of Honor. All right, so this week dropped a huge teaser trailer. And, folks, it's finally here. I was a little nervous that maybe Netflix wasn't going to do it, but we got our first Castlevania teaser trailer.
Yes, we did.
Castlevania, the anime series, will debut, on Netflix. All episodes will be available July 7th. So get ready to binge watch.
Cannot wait.
Yes.
Very excited.
And the trailer, there were two trailers that came out. The first trailer I saw was kind of like a Spanish trailer with subtitles, which was fine and everything. But, folks, if you haven't seen it yet, go to the Retro Gamers Facebook page, facebook.com/Retro Gamers Podcast, and check out the trailer, the American trailer, the English trailer. Because it's slightly longer than the original one I posted, and I love how it starts out, this trailer.
Oh yeah, the open to the trailer is just awesome. I mean, I kind of don't want to give it away for people, but like,
let's do this. Hold on. Let's do this. Folks, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, pause the podcast now. Go to YouTube or go to our Facebook page. Check out the trailer. I'll give you 2 seconds. 2, 1, and hopefully you'll be unpaused. Go for it. Spoiler alert. Go for it.
All right, total spoiler alert. But yeah, the open with the Castlevania cartridge sitting on top of the NES, and they slide it in. And not only that, I mean, that part was cool. But then seeing basically the NES version of Kevin Spacey at House of Cards, as it's like flipping through current titles on Netflix before settling on Castlevania, I thought like really, really great, clever, nice way to bring in your already established audience who are fans of the Castlevania series. That just made me laugh.
I want 8-bit Netflix. I would watch 8-bit Netflix.
Oh, I have no doubt you would. I would watch maybe one thing 8-bit Netflix, and I think that would be enough. But 8-bit Netflix sounds like fun.
At first when the trailer first started, I honestly thought it was like a fan made trailer. So at first I'm like, this isn't a real trailer. It's it just looks kind of silly because the cartridge, first of all, it's a red cartridge. It almost looks like a homebrewed. Yep. It's a homebrewed cartridge. I like the style he blows into the cartridge, so you got to do that
because you have to,
of course. And then yes, you see the 8-bit, the 8-bit Netflix, and then it starts showing like the castle in 8-bit, and then the screen goes blurry. Then it goes into the actual trailer of the anime. And remember, this is an R-rated anime. This is not going to be for the kids. I mean, the kids can watch it if they want. But this is going to be hardcore. Nope, it's not going to be hardcore. This is going to be, it's going to be good.
Violent.
Let's say that. Yeah, definitely.
Let's say violent.
Yep.
There will be blood, as shown in the trailer. So,
this is like anime.
So yeah,
I
mean, it's just a teaser. There's not a whole, there's not a ton in there, but it gives you basically the feel of what the show is going to be like. And I think just judging from that, I mean, you can definitely see some interesting racy things in there. I saw there's one split shot, like it's not even, it's maybe half a second if you're lucky, of a guy grasping the side of his face with blood coming down, and I don't know if he lost his eye or whatever, but yeah, it's just like that one shot like was just so cool. I was like, okay, like this is definitely going to be good.
I'm not. I don't watch a lot of anime. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of anime, but I don't watch a lot of it. But honestly, seeing this trailer makes me want to go back and almost watch anime to not only get a feel of how, because anime movies are like, it's a whole different genre of television and of movies. So I almost feel like before July 7th, I should go watch some anime, which I think a lot of it's available on Netflix, just to get used to that style.
Yeah, I was going to say, go watch the new Voltron.
I was going to say, the new Voltron's anime, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
or at least
the original was kind of anime.
Pretty much. It's I don't know. I'm not an expert in anime, so I can't define it.
Yeah, right.
I can't
it's
really
weird.
Define it. So
yeah, usually I always thought anime was just like big boobed girls running around with Hello Kitties and all this weird nonsense.
Well, of course you would think that.
Well, that's what it was in the beginning.
You're you.
What? That's the other podcast. That's the better half. Plug.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Save that for better half. But anyway, I'm definitely not an anime expert. But just again, but even putting that aside, like watching the Voltron, I did watch the first season of the new Voltron that they released on Netflix, and I know the second season's out there, and I got to go back and watch it. But the first season was so good, and it was really refreshing to see an animated series that actually had kind of a continuing storyline. And actually, season 1 ended on an actual cliffhanger that you needed to wait for season 2 to come out to find out what happened. Like they really went all in with it. They made it, they actually made it a series, and I'm hoping that's what they're planning on doing here with Castlevania, because I think it's going to be 7 episodes. Is that right?
Oh, I don't.
Or is it more?
I don't remember. I was hoping. I'm assuming a full 13, but probably not.
All right. Well, I hope so. But
it should be based, and I'll be corrected if need to be. But I think this is based more on Castlevania 3 story. I remember hearing about so. Which was a great game. Don't get me wrong; it's fantastic.
I mean, they skipped over Castlevania 2, kind of what you've been doing lately.
Wow! Ouch!
Hey, what do you want from me? You're the one who hasn't been playing the game.
No, I haven't. But now I want to again. I'm gonna pick it up again now in honor of the new Castlevania, and then when I'm done with 2, I'll have to play 3, so I know what the anime is gonna be all about.
Or you can just watch the show and just learn it there, like I'm going to, because I never played Castlevania 3 either. I did beat 1 and... No, I did not. I beat 1 and 2, and if I remember correctly, I beat Bloodlines on Genesis.
Oh, Bloodlines awesome.
But I missed... For some odd reason, I missed 3 and 4.
Really? You never played 4?
Super Castlevania 4?
Yeah.
No.
Wow, I could have sworn that you have.
No, I
I'm
did
basing
not.
that on, but
Bloodlines was the one that I played, and I loved
oh,
Bloodlines.
Bloodlines was awesome.
And then of course, Symphony of the Night, which is God, I love that game. Absolutely love that game.
Oh yeah, no, best one of the entire series. But of like those
Agreed.
first 4, I'm gonna go. I mean, Castlevania 3 is definitely my favorite. So that's why I'm looking forward to this show.
All right, I need to get my hands on that then.
Yeah, no, definitely Castlevania 3. Oh no, it's not on the thing. Yeah, Castlevania 3, bar none of the NES games, magnifique.
Awesome. I'll need something to play after I'm done with Zelda Breath of the Wild. So
Get some Breath of the Wild happening there. Sweet.
I have way too much Breath of the Wild happening. I can't put that game down. I now own 3 Switch games, and I've yet to take Zelda out of the machine. My console only has Zelda in there. The other 2 games are just sitting there waiting to be played.
I just downloaded a Neo Geo game, Blazing Stars, I think it's called. It's like $8. It's a side-scrolling vertical shooter.
Okay, and how is it?
Oh, it's awesome. I love those vertical shooters. And I got Ultra Street Fighter 2 came in.
Oh, very nice.
That game, that's game. I mean, look, it's like every other Street Fighter 2 game we play, but with the new graphics, it's very smooth. I mean, the graphics, the high def graphics are.
Wait, which system did you buy it for?
It's only on Switch.
Oh, it's only on Switch.
Yeah.
Cool.
The high def graphics are amazing, just so fluid, but you can dial them back to the 16-bit graphics, and
Very
even on
cool.
that, it's still fun to play. And all with there's 3 new characters. You got the evil Ken, whatever bad Ryu is, and Akuma. So those are the 3 new ones in the Street Fighter 2 universe. I highly recommend picking it up. I haven't tried the first-person Ryu fight yet, where you play as Ryu first person and like do actual Hadoukens with the Joy-Cons. So,
jeez.
I gotta try that next.
Yeah, I gotta draw that. That's where I always draw the line. Like, and it was one of the main reasons why I never wound up owning a Wii was because I did not want to stand in my living room and act out what was going on in the game. I just want a controller in my hand, and I just want to play the good old fashioned way.
It's like I got SmackDown versus Raw on the Wii for Christmas one time, and like had to, like with the Wii and the nunchuck, like do the body slam motion and stuff like that.
Didn't you also buy Hulk Hogan's video game that was really bad?
I almost bought a Kinect for that game, but no, I never bought it.
All right, good man, smart man. All right, so somehow we were talking about Castlevania, and we wound up at wrestling.
We did, but in the middle, we touched on Zelda.
All right, so since we were just talking about my experiences with Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and of course, I think every week I pretty much come up. I talk about Zelda because I'm pretty sure it's my favorite series of all time in video games.
Can't blame me.
But for those of you who are unaware, for a few years now, The Legend of Zelda has been going on tour with a live orchestra playing a lot of the music from all the Zelda games across the whole span of its lifetime, dating back to the original one on NES, and it's called The Legend of Zelda: Symphony of the Goddesses. And they have announced their 2017 tour schedule.
Sweet.
It actually started last week on May 20th in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh.
But they will be traveling all across the United States, and tickets are available now. It's running from, like I said, from last week it started. It runs all the way through end of December.
Oh, okay.
They're bouncing around different cities in the U.S. They're also going to be in Canada. They will be in Mexico, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, and Singapore.
Oh man, they are literally all over the place.
Yep. So they are. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot Italy.
How could you forget Italy?
My bad. And Spain. Basically, they're going all through Europe.
Yep.
Okay. They're hitting everywhere in Europe.
When are they going to the moon?
When they what?
Going to the moon.
Not till 2018.
Fair enough.
So apparently the show is about 2.5 hours.
Oh wow.
Including intermission. So it's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
Pretty lengthy show. I personally have not been to the concert yet, but I plan on going because they will be in Los Angeles at the Dolby Theater on September 30th, so I will be buying tickets to that show.
Cool.
Larry, they're not going to leave you out in New York. They will be there on October 20th at the United Palace Theater in New York.
I just have to find the United Palace Theater.
I'm guessing it exists since they're selling tickets for it. So
no, that's cool though.
But yeah, for anybody else, who listens to our podcast, who doesn't know about it and is interested, you can go to their website, which is zelda-symphony.com, and they have the schedule there. And there's actually a code if you do purchase tickets through them to get a free program, and the code is MasterQuest. So, and you know the origin of the Master Quest, right?
Of course, you put in Zelda in the original game, and you jump straight to the second quest.
Straight to the second quest.
And the Master Quest was also in Ocarina of Time.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
It definitely was. And of course, Breath of the Wild is a sequel to Ocarina of Time, which I love. So, did you know that?
Is it a direct sequel?
It seems to me that it's a direct sequel. I have to look up the information on it, but based on the story beats that are going on in it, I'm immediately thinking,
really?
Oh yeah, this has to be a sequel of Ocarina of Time because there are too many things happening here that relate back to it. So
I can see that. Interesting. Make me go
but anyway,
play that game.
But anyway, circling back, so Legend of Zelda, Symphony of the Goddesses. I'm looking forward to September 30th. I cannot wait to actually experience that live. And anybody else out there who's a fan, go check it out.
Yeah, and it looks like October 20th is going to be here in New York, so I'll definitely check that out. And we'll put the link down below, the code MasterQuest to get a free program. And when you buy a ticket, make sure you mention the Retro Gamers. It's not going to get you anything other than a puzzled look on the person's face saying, who are they and why are you telling me this? Exactly.
I have no words for that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So go check it out. What was that website one more time?
The website is zelda-symphony.com.
Check it out. All right. So, Ann, a couple weeks ago, I think it was, you started talking about a book that you were reading, right? Console Wars?
Yes, I did talk about a book I was reading a couple weeks ago. I had actually started reading it a couple of months ago when I was being thrown all over the world for my job. And you know what? There are only so many movies you can watch on a flight to and from Japan before they start to repeat on you. So I needed other forms of entertainment. So before I got my Switch, I had picked up Console Wars, which was written by Blake J. Harris, and thought, I was like, all right, cool. I was like, if I need something to do, I'll just start reading this. And basically, I did not realize how awesome this book was actually going to be.
Really?
So, and for those listening, how does it relate to retro gaming? Of course, this book actually covers the battle between Sega and Nintendo for video game dominance in the early 90s. So,
retro.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely retro. So it fit in perfectly to our show. So I thought it would be really cool to read through it. But I honestly did not expect the depth at which this book covered the battle between Nintendo and Sega. So the author interviewed most of the head, basically the executives at Sega, who were at Sega at the time.
Really?
In the 90s, yeah, and then a handful of the head guys that were at Nintendo at the time, which was great. So he got a firsthand account from all of them on just exactly what happened, and of course their perspectives on things, because obviously Nintendo and Sega are gonna think things completely differently based on their own experiences throughout the whole war. But it was really interesting to read how quickly Sega ascended, basically. They came out. They started as an underdog with the Sega Master System because at the time, and the book covers this. Like Nintendo had brought the video game industry, back from the brink of extinction after the whole Atari fiasco with and how
E.T.
the video,
and all that,
E.T. and all that, and how video games were basically at death's door. Nobody was buying them anymore. Atari, ColecoVision, Intellivision, they were all just kind of going away. And then out comes the Nintendo Entertainment System, which revitalized the whole industry. And with that, Nintendo got to, and again, these are things that the book covers, and I found it so interesting because I didn't know all of these little details, because clearly we were kids, obviously, but even now as adults, it's like we're just gamers. We go to the store, we buy the games, and we play the games.
Exactly.
We don't really think we don't think about, like, everything behind what it took to make the games. And the book really covers in detail, like in the 80s, how basically Nintendo, once they brought video games back to prominence, they also decided to start making their own rules on how to govern the video game industry. And these are rules that still exist today. For example, limited quantity. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Limited
No,
quantity?
not to me.
No, not well, yeah, because you got an NES Classic. But then, Nintendo, once they started doing well and started succeeding with the NES, they were afraid that oversaturation was going to cause another implosion in the video game industry. In order to avoid that, they started offering things in limited quantity. They would not, for example, they would not fulfill their retailers' full order. So if a retailer ordered like 100,000 copies of a game, they would give them like 20,000 copies instead of 100. So and it wasn't just to drive up demand. It was their way of controlling the marketplace so that it didn't become oversaturated. Mm-hmm. And there were a whole bunch, and it goes into other details on how they kind of came up with these other rules that they abided by. And then here comes this little upstart company, Sega, who's trying to compete. And at the time, Nintendo held 90% of the market.
Wow.
They were responsible for 90% of the video game market.
Good Lord.
Because, well, I mean, if you think about it, think about when the NES came out. There really was nothing going. There was really nothing going up against it. And then the Sega Master System came out, and even that system, you didn't really hear a lot about it. So we have Nintendo that basically has who has 90% control of the video game industry, and then here's this little company, Sega, who's got who at the time, of course, just had like a drop in the bucket. With their Master System, and then they come out with their 16-bit Genesis, which actually came out in 1990.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It came out in 1990. The Super Nintendo, I think, came out in 91.
Yeah.
But Genesis actually came out first, and so again, and the book goes into detail, but it basically talks about how Sega of America was formed in order to bring Sega to prominence here in the United States. And they hired this guy from Mattel who was responsible for the Barbie resurgence in the 70s and the He-Man Masters of the Universe merchandising. Mm-hmm. Like they had come up with all everything. Wow. He-Man.
Okay.
In fact,
those are two huge selling things.
Yeah, exactly. So they brought the head guy over there, whose name is Tom Kalinske, in to be president of Sega, and then he brought in a whole bunch of other people. And so you basically go through the actual, almost step by step, how they came up with their marketing campaign, how they came up with their advertising campaign, how Sonic the Hedgehog was actually invented.
Really?
And how that, and how he became the mascot for Sega, because at the time, Alex Kidd was looked at as the Sega mascot, but they knew that wasn't going to be able to combat Mario, so they needed to find something else. Yeah. So they go through the whole story on how they came up with Sonic, and basically how Sonic became responsible. Not only did Sonic was a big part of why Sega wound up slowly starting to catch up to Nintendo, and then eventually outselling Nintendo. Huh. There was a time where Sega It was probably around, I want to say it was like 93-ish, where Sega held about 55% of the marketplace. So
Wow.
they had actually, at a certain point, they had
Dominating.
actually taken it over. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had taken it over Nintendo. And Nintendo at the time, well, and you know, they did a lot of campaigns and stuff. I know you remember the one where it was like Sega does what Nintendo don't,
Yeah.
um, which was actually before Kalinsky was brought in to run the place. That was the one that came out before him. And then he hired a firm that came up with the concept of the next level. Welcome to the next level. Do you remember
Oh
that
yeah, yeah,
campaign
yeah. I
for
remember that.
Genesis?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really awesome campaign. And that was the one that introduced us to the guy screaming Sega.
Sega.
Yeah, that guy. It came from that advertising campaign, and then it wound up being put in front of like every game after that.
Yeah.
So basically, it goes through the whole. It literally follows through how Sega kind of climbs up and starts beating Nintendo, and basically how Nintendo just kind of went along with it, and how they just kind of sat there and said, "We're just gonna wait because." Sega's this little young upstart, and they're and they're going fast and furious and all this stuff. And he's like, and Nintendo was just basically like they're going to burn themselves out. That was kind of their thing. It was like a waiting game for them.
Huh.
They're like, we'll keep doing what we're doing, and they'll eventually burn themselves out because they're doing too much too fast.
That's a gutsy move on Nintendo's part.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see. What was probably the most surprising thing about this reading this book was realizing how close both Nintendo and Sega had, how close they were to not having the Sony PlayStation ever come to being,
Really?
because both companies were ridiculously close to hiring Sony to develop their PlayStation console for them, because
Wow.
Sega wanted Sony to work on their Sega Saturn.
Oh.
He wanted Sony's technology to build the Sega Saturn,
Okay.
and then Sony had originally gone to Nintendo. They were in talks to do
The
to do
hybrid Super Nintendo.
a hybrid Super Nintendo,
Yeah.
which was going to be a CD-based system, which would have been the technology that led to the PlayStation.
Mhm.
But at the last minute, Nintendo decided to drop them and sign a deal with Philips for their CDI system,
Yeah,
which was,
that was
which wound up becoming a massive failure.
terrible.
So, and unfortunately for Sega, Sony and Sega were about to strike a deal. They were really close to striking a deal, but Sega of Japan did not want to sign the deal, and because of that, Sega of America could not do it.
Wow.
And because of that, and that led to Sony just going off and doing the PlayStation all on their own.
That's the first. I mean, I've heard of Sony and Nintendo. In fact, just recently, the prototype for that system was unearthed somewhere. But that's the first
Super
time.
Nintendo add-on. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first I've ever heard that Sony was in talks with Sega about the Saturn. I never knew that. That's
Yeah.
wow.
So Sega of America wanted Sony badly, but the heads at Sega of Japan, who ultimately, that was the other thing. Like, this book will really show you kind of how the head honchos in Japan really control the marketplace. Because even Nintendo of America and Sega of America both had to answer to their Japanese counterparts, because those were the main companies.
Yeah.
They were just an extension of those companies.
Yep.
So, and when they would get a no from those companies, there was nothing they can do about it. They were literally like just stuck with it. So when Kalinsky went to Sega of Japan and pitched Sony and wanted this great thing to happen with Sony, so Sega Japan came back. The head of Sega Japan came back and said no.
I guess
Ultimately, the answer was just no. They didn't want to do it, and as a result of that, the Saturn wound up becoming a failure because the technology in the Saturn wasn't as good as it should have been. And then PlayStation, of course, came out, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to read through. And again, the span of Sega's success and failure really spanned about 5 or 6 years. That's all it was. I mean,
Really?
yeah, because it was really somewhere around like 91, 92 when they really started shooting up with Sonic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it was probably around 96 when they were pretty much down and out. Their last ditch effort was eventually the Dreamcast, but that sputtered, and that was the end of their console making
Yeah.
days. Uh, but the Saturn didn't really do well in sales. I think if I remember correctly, they said it had sold about 800,000 units,
Really? That's it?
which
I mean, I never had one,
that's it.
but
I never had a Saturn
yeah.
either. But yeah, it sold under 1 million units, which is which even back then was considered a failure for a console. But the problem at the time for Sega, and this was one of the reasons why Nintendo was going with the wait and see approach, was that Sega kept coming out with more things, so it was just more pieces to buy. You had the Sega Genesis, and then you had the Sega CD and the Sega 32X, and then there was the 32X CD combo, and the Game Gear, and then there was something else they were going to come out with that they wound up not coming out with, and I don't know why.
Was it before the Saturn? Probably.
No, it was like they were going to come out with a handheld edutainment
Oh.
thing.
Okay.
And they brought it to the president of Sega and showed it to him, and he asked how much it would cost, and they told him, well, this is the retail price for consumers, and then he proceeded to destroy the thing in front of their faces in the meeting. Like literally slammed it on the table and broke it into 1 million pieces.
As they do over there in these business meetings, apparently.
Yeah. So again, it's just like and I'm not doing the book enough justice. I'm just like hitting on touch points that I remember the best because it was just so well done. And there were so many cool things about it. So I highly recommend getting this book. The first E3, the first ever E3 that came out, that happened, I think it was in 1995. And at the time, the Sega Saturn was supposed to be coming out a few months, like 4 months after the first E3. And a month before the show, the president of Sega came to Kalinsky, the president of Sega of America, and he's like, "I want the Saturn to launch at E3." And so they had to rush to get that announcement in. And so they did this whole big hoopla around the Sega Saturn, and they had a big presentation to show it off and everything. And they said, "Hey, guess what? It's in stores now. You can get it right now." And it's only $399.
That was it.
Because it was $399 when it came out.
That's not bad.
So they gave like this whole big presentation on it, right? And then the guy who stepped up for Sony, because this was the first E3, and this was the first time Sony was going to speak about the PlayStation.
Oh.
So they haven't even been in the market yet. Nothing. So the guy who walks up, Steve Race, gets in front of the podium and he gives his speech for the Sony PlayStation, and he says one thing. He goes, $299, and walks off the stage.
Wow. I gotta go. That's gotta be on YouTube somewhere.
It must be. It must be.
My
but
God, that is hysterical.
And walks off the stage, and then once they announced that, like, Sega knew that they were done. Because you're talking about a new system coming out, $20 cheaper with better tech than what
$100
you're
cheaper.
currently.
Yeah.
$100 cheaper with better tech than what you're selling. So anyway, Harris captures all this in the book. It's really, really awesome. I do recommend if you pick it up. The foreword is actually done by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, which was actually really cool.
Oh wow!
And it's also it says in the book that it's soon to be a major motion picture. So they're apparently doing, I'm guessing, a documentary on it.
Oh wow! Well, if Seth Rogen's writing the cover, maybe not a documentary, but just a movie.
It might actually, maybe it'll actually be a feature-length film. But I highly recommend. This has got to be, and not just because I'm a retro gamer. I'm an avid reader, and this is probably one of the best or most well-written nonfiction books I've ever read.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because I mean it gets right into it. I mean everything, like the details that are in here, the conversations that were had. Again, I if I had to have one like critique of it, I felt like it did paint Sega as kind of like the hero of the piece, like the
Big bad
that little
Nintendo.
engine that could, yeah,
Yeah.
like trying to go up against like Big Bad Nintendo, and then even at the end of the day, the ultimate blame went on. Well, ultimately the blame went to Sega of Japan because they stopped them from doing what they wanted to do, and had they allowed them to do what they wanted to do, they would have succeeded, and they would have signed Sony and all these things. So there's a little bit of that blame game in there, which I'm never a big fan of
Mhm.
because it doesn't really have the full story from Japan's point of view. So we don't
Gotcha.
know. Right. So ultimately, we don't know exactly what they were thinking while this was going on in America. However, I mean, just based on the story in the book, it's like, well, you know, Sega of America captured 55% of the marketplace when Nintendo originally had 90. I would say they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely had a good idea.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, like a lot of the stuff, at least from the way they depicted the companies in Japan, it wasn't always about making money. And that's part, whatever their business models are, it's not always we're in it to make the most money we possibly can. That's not how
Hmm.
their business models don't work that way.
That's
And I
very.
guess that's one of those things that maybe got lost in translation because the American companies were always about we need more market share, we need more money, we need to make more money, we have to put the other people out of
While
business.
you're in
It
business.
doesn't it didn't, based on what I read here, it does not seem to work that way in Japan, and I think that's why there was like you can see when you read the book, you can actually feel the tension between the American side and the Japanese side of the same company.
Yeah, that's weird.
So yeah, it's really really strange and but fascinating at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, so again, the author's name is Blake J. Harris. The book is Console Wars. Larry, I highly recommend you pick it up and read it. Do not wait for the movie.
Because then they'll start
Um,
changing everything. It'll be TurboGrafx 16
yeah,
versus
exactly. You
Atari.
don't want
Oh,
to.
Atari.
Yeah, it'll be Neo Geo or who
No, I'll
knows
definitely
what'll
check it out.
happen. But yeah, definitely check it out. Anybody who's listening, like I said, if you love reading and you love retro gaming, this is definitely the book to read. Console Wars, Blake J. Harris. Pick it up.
All right, and what do we got this week in gaming?
All right. Well, trying to stick with the Memorial Day theme, I've decided for this week in gaming that I will only be telling you guys about U.S. releases this time,
Nice. Yes.
which
USA.
is good. Which is
USA.
good in one way, but bad in another. And I
How could it
regret to
possibly be bad?
inform you that since we're focusing on U.S. only release dates, there will be no Sharp X 68,000 mentions today.
Oh, that is the only downfall about this. Yikes.
Yes.
Ugh.
And just to point out also, there will be no Virtual Boys mentioned today because Virtual Boy is just not American.
What? How dare you?
That's right. I don't think it's any country.
It's its own.
It needs to be forgotten.
Oh,
All three copies of
I
it.
can't wait to buy one this year at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo.
Whatever. You you enjoy throwing away like $300 for a system that's awful.
What do we got this week?
Moving on, this week in gaming. Okay, so interestingly enough, not that much came out in the '80s this week in gaming history. So we're gonna fly through the '80s really quickly. So
Okay.
1982 on the Atari 8-bit system, we got a game called Time Runner.
Hmm. Okay.
No idea.
No.
In 1984 on the Apple II, we got Scout Search.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Okay.
And 1987 on the Apple II, we got Lethal Labyrinth.
Ooh. Apple breaking
Yes.
out their games.
Apple breaking out their games. And now I'm going to jump all the way to 1991. So we're in
Oh,
the
wow.
90s already.
Sweet.
And again, just to repeat, United States releases only. I stayed away from Japan this week.
Sweet.
Also, I did point out worldwide ones because worldwide includes the United
Of
States.
course.
So this one I thought was fun. 1991 on the Amiga. I don't know if you remember the Amiga.
Oh, yeah, I
but-
remember the Amiga. Yeah, I never had
Okay.
it, but I definitely remember it. Yeah.
On the Amiga, a game came out that was called Yet Another Tetris Clone.
Well, that's kind of upfront, ain't it?
They, you know what? They weren't even trying to hide it. It was just like, you know what? Everybody's going to say this is just like Tetris, so let's just call it what it is. Yet another Tetris clone. 1991. In 1992, on the Game Boy, we got Paperboy 2.
Ooh, all right.
which was very cool.
Yeah.
And on Super Nintendo, Super Star Wars.
Oh wow, nice, good game.
Yep. And now when I jump to 1993 on Super Nintendo, we got Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
exactly 1 year later. We also got, and I don't know if you're aware this game even existed, or if you had it maybe, but on Super Nintendo in 1993, the Blues Brothers Jukebox Adventure.
I did not own it. It was a rough game. I've seen clips of it. I never really played it, but no, I didn't even know that. It's funny. I first heard about that game like just a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know you're a huge Blues
Oh, I
Brothers
love
fan.
it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe you had that.
I would have bought it, but no, I didn't even know it existed.
All right. Moving on to 1994, we got Super Star Wars: Return of the Jedi to fill out the trilogy.
Yeah, excellent, excellent.
One a year. Bill Walsh College Football for the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Virtual Bart for the Super Nintendo.
Oh, I remember that game. Yep.
Yep, I remember that one too.
Boy, for a split second, you're like virtual but. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it was Bart.
What? No, Virtual Bart. Would you like? I could make another Virtual Boy reference.
Let's keep moving on. Let's keep going.
Okay, moving on. On the Sega CD, there was a game called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs: The Second Cataclysm.
What?
I really don't know what else to say about that. Except that was on Sega CD, everybody. Also, Pinball Dreams for the Game Boy came out in 1994.
Okay, yep.
Moving on to 95. On the Amiga, again, we got Sid Meier's Colonization.
Ooh.
Version 1.11.
There you go. No, that was a high, 1.10 had its criticism, but 1.11 just shot it into the stratosphere.
Yes, that is absolutely incorrect. Moving on to Windows
Okay.
version. We got Carmen Sandiego Junior Detective Edition.
Oh, Junior Detective. Okay. That one I could beat.
Is that I think that came out around the same time the game show was on PBS.
Oh, that'd be that.
Remember that game show?
Was the best theme song for a game show ever.
I just love the fact that the kids on that game show somehow knew every country in Africa so they can win the last round.
Honestly, it was either always Africa or like Europe. With like
Yes.
the two. And here's my gripe to that. We'll move on. Here, even when it was the U.S., the reason why that bonus round was so difficult, because you're at home, you're like, there's where New York is. They're playing it with the map upside down.
Yep.
So that's what made it even more difficult. That was very sneaky.
That's okay. It never stopped me from laughing at them when they got stuff wrong.
Rockapella.
Also in 1995, on the Genesis, we got Zoop.
Oh, I love that game.
That was a cool game.
Actually, I had that one on Super Nintendo, but yeah.
And on the and we also got Double Dragon on the Neo Geo CD.
Wow. Okay, that was
1995.
probably the arcade version.
I wonder if they were trying to capitalize on the movie.
95, maybe.
I don't even remember when that movie came out.
I hope it's not like Street Fighter the movie, the game.
Well, I know it came out after Super Mario Brothers, and Super Mario Brothers was like 93, 94.
Yeah, 93,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, that might have been. Who knows? But yikes. Moving on, 1996 on Windows. American Civil War from Sumter to Appomattox.
There you go. That sounds exciting.
Sounds patriotic,
Yeah,
keeping with the theme.
I like it. It's like the Oregon Trail.
Yes. Die of dysentery. Moving on to 1997, we got on PlayStation Broken Helix. I don't know if you remember that game.
That game sounds.
I remember the
familiar.
game. I just don't remember.
Was it a puzzle?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I don't think so.
On N64, though, we got Hexen Beyond Heretic.
Okay. Yep.
On PlayStation, Dynasty Warriors.
Ooh, nice.
And on the sad Sega Saturn, Sky Target.
No idea.
Right? That's why the Sega Saturn failed. 1998, Nintendo 64, Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, sweet. Good game.
Yes. Also on N64, Quest 64, which was kind of a stand. It was like a standalone RPG.
Yep, I remember that.
Yep. Also on PlayStation, we got Road Rash 3D.
Nice.
And Windows Space Station Simulator version
cool.
1.1.
Awesome. Simulators. Those simulator games are sweet.
I used to love I used to love simulator games
Yeah.
until like I remember trying to play Flight Simulator on my computer,
Hmm.
and I remember like you literally had to learn how to fly the plane, like with all the
Yeah.
buttons and everything. But then like once you realize it's like, oh, I'm gonna course, I'm gonna fly from like New York to LA, and then I realized like you would actually have to sit in front of your computer for the whole 6 hours. Like you would do
Yeah.
the whole flight.
It was
I'm like,
legit. Yep.
yeah, I was like, oh, no thanks. All right. 1999,
Hmm.
Nintendo 64, one of the most reviled games in all of gaming history, Superman.
Ooh. Oof. That hurts. Yep. That was a rough one. That was
Yep.
ugly. Okay.
We also got on Windows in 1999, Fighting Steel, World War II Surface Combat 1939 to 1942.
The title just rolls right off the tongue.
It really does. Say it 10 times fast. We also got Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue on PlayStation.
Oh, that game rocked. I remember that game.
Yep.
Yeah.
PGA Championship Golf, 1999 edition.
99.
Uh,
What game? Which one
for-
did we played one for? Remember, we bought like there was like one golf game that I
forgot.
remember we played. All of us for some reason picked it up that year.
What did we play online?
I guess it
or
was
did
at
we-
99.
Were we playing online or were we playing like separately?
No, I think it was all on Genesis.
Oh yeah, no, that was PGA Tour 96.
Yeah, that's what it was. I don't know why all of us went out and decided to get it, but
I don't know.
we got we like let's get a golf game.
None of us even played golf.
I did in high school, but still not enough to warrant to go out and get a game.
Yep. Oh god. Well, moving on. Also in 99, we got Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue for Windows and Mac.
All
Throw
right.
a Power Rangers reference in there.
There you go.
And WWF Attitude for Game Boy Color.
Ooh, color.
All right, we're in the 2000s.
In the year 2000.
In the year 2000 on Game Boy Color, you got Wario Land 3.
Oh, great game. Yep. Seriously.
And on Dreamcast, you got Bust a Move 4.
Bust a move?
No. No, Bust a Move 4 was the
I
bubble
know.
popping game.
I
And now we're jumping to 2001. A
Okay.
lot of games in 2001.
Ooh, all right.
Tokyo Extreme Racer 0 for PS2.
Okay.
Baldur's Gate Tales of the Sword Coast for Macintosh.
At Baldur's
For-
Gate.
Frank, another Baldur's Gate. Ding. Moving on, Crazy Taxi 2 for Dreamcast.
Okay. I think I had that actually, yeah.
We also got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
Microsoft Train Simulator for Windows. If you got too bored flying a plane, then you can drive a train. And then here's an interesting one that came out for Windows: Golf Resort Tycoon.
Huh.
So kind of like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but you're building a golf resort.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Really?
No, I mean that like those
Why didn't they just? They should just come out with Virtual Boy Tycoon. Build your own failure.
those golf courses are tough to design, and so is the Virtual Boy.
Okay, moving on. Also in 2001, and another again, this I think was my favorite title of this week in gaming, even though those other ones were kind of good. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was pretty cool too. But for PlayStation, 2001, Pajama Sam 3. You are what you eat from your head to your feet.
What? Is that an
That's the whole
educational game?
title. I don't know.
What system?
PlayStation. 2002, Legends of Wrestling for the Xbox.
Oh, that game rocked.
I loved the third one because it had everybody in it.
Oh, yeah.
I think
I
it
mean,
was
The concept, basically, the
Yeah.
concept was every wrestler who wasn't signed with WWE pretty much signed with this game to play, and it was a lot of old timers. And I remember in college, I think it was Activision, right?
Acclaim. No, it
Or
wasn't
Acclaim. Acclaim, that's right. Acclaim. They must have been on
Yeah.
Long Island because Acclaim came a couple of times to my college to do a survey. And I remember they had a survey for like, if we come out with a wrestling game, which one of these guys would like to see in the game? And it was like all these guys who just like from the 70s and 80s. It was sweet.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and it was I do remember. In fact, I still have those games. I think the third one was called Showdown Legends of
Yes.
Wrestling, and had
Yep.
everybody. And you were able to have like dream matches that you couldn't have before, like
Exactly.
Hulk Hogan versus Sting and stuff like that.
Yep.
Although that had happened by then.
Like
So,
Hogan
anyway,
versus RVD.
Yes. Moving on in 2002, Lost Kingdoms for GameCube. I don't know if you know that game.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Earthworm Jim 2 for Game Boy Advance.
Oh, okay, cool.
Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Blech, Game Boy Advance. Oh, that game. And UFC Throwdown for PlayStation 2.
Nice.
2003, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory for Windows and Linux.
Sweet.
Linux. Chessmaster for PS2.
Those games were fun. I like Chessmaster.
Yeah, I did too when I used to love playing chess. Midnight Club 2 for Xbox.
Oh, nice.
And here's yet another one for 2003. Skeleton for the Atari 2600.
We got to do some research on that.
Yeah, that I said the last time I got to do a retro spotlight on that or something. But next week we have to spend a little time figuring this one out. Because what is up with the 2003 Atari 2600 releases?
Forget that. Right now on pre-order, you can pre-order RBI Baseball 2017 for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
I saw that.
It's an NES cart. And it's the 2017 roster, well, as of opening day, but it's the old school graphics. We'll check this out next week.
All right. So yeah, we definitely need to figure that out next week. All right, 2004, Crash Bandicoot Purple Ripto's Rampage for Game Boy Advance.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll stick with colors, Spyro Orange, the Cortex Conspiracy for Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance like their color genre games.
They really did. Yeah. They really did. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for Xbox, PS2, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. Okay. And my favorite from 2004, Hamster Jam for Windows. Now, the words are together. It's one word. Hamster Jam is one word. So don't think it's like making hamster jam.
And that is exactly what I was thinking about.
No, it's Hamster Jam.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Like Monster Jam.
Right, like Monster Jam, but Hamster Jam. 2005, Star Wars Galaxies, the Total Experience on Windows.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep, also ER on Windows.
Weird, okay.
Hey, cut people up, take out organs.
Well, which ER? Like the comedy ER back in the day, or the one with George Clooney?
Might have been the one with George Clooney.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sure, though. Advent Rising for Xbox.
Ooh, nice.
And my favorite from 2005. There's some real winners on this list. Communist Mutants from Space on Windows. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Oh, man. Oh.
And ending the list in 2006, we got Half-Life 2 Episode 1 on Windows. Okay. We got Stacked with Daniel Negreanu. This was a poker game on Xbox, PS2, PSP, and Windows. I loved Texas Hold'em. Yeah. I absolutely loved Texas Hold'em, and this was one of I think the first games that really focused on it.
Yeah, right.
And then last but not least, Hitman Blood Money for Xbox, PS2, Windows, and Xbox 360, which is where we stop. Where we stop right there. That is the end of This Week in Gaming. Hope you enjoyed that.
And with that was good. That was a good list. Well,
that was a good list.
Yeah, it was a fun list.
I really now want to go out and buy yet another Tetris clone, and I want to find Cadillacs and Dinosaurs: The Second Cataclysm.
What about the one in the pajamas?
Yeah, we should probably find that game too. That was Pajama Sam 3. You are what you eat from your head to your feet.
God. Folks, thank you for downloading another week of the Retro Gamers. Remember, hit that subscribe button on iTunes. That way you get each and every episode, each and every week. And I'm going to do a little plugola here on my end. Pro Slam World Podcast every Friday. And now on Wednesdays, not every Wednesday, but I think every other Wednesday. We haven't decided yet. New podcast, me and Frank, The Better Half. He's married. I'm single. Who's got the better half? So a couple new podcasts dropping in. What do you got happening?
I don't have any new podcasts. I just do this one.
Very good.
Isn't that enough?
Trust me, I'm getting stretched out as it is. No, good stuff. So yeah, hit the subscribe button. Follow us all on Instagram at @the_RetroGamers. Of course, the Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. Hit like, hit share, hit everything, and we'll check you out next week. Have a good one, everyone.